Thank you for joining me on the third video of NFPA 101 series. For those who have just joined on this video, you may want to have a look at video 1, chapter 1 and chapter 2 on this channel. Uh, Quickly, my videos are made to discuss on things differently from webinars or online videos that you can find from NFPA. My videos uh, are meant to discuss based on my experience and knowledge of application of the design, inspection and testing and maintenance. Quickly, chapter 3 definitions. It's important to note that despite being a long list of words covered under chapter 3, there are still words, phrases that are not covered in chapter 3. For a very simple reason, because those words are meant to be the same meaning as words that you would understand, outside the context of NFPA. So thus, the code allows the use of Merriam-Webster, be it hard copy or online dictionary, to be used to define those words. So if you can't find a word that been bothering you in an FPA 101, go to Merriam-Webster online and look for the meaning of those words, and you can adopt those meanings. One example would be atmosphere, right? Approved. This clause states approved, acceptable to authority having jurisdiction. It is basically trying to state that any approval of design, system, equipment is at the prerogative of the authority having jurisdiction and not the NFPA. Otherwise, it would have mentioned approval acceptable to the NFPA, right? So NFPA does not do approval. Authority having jurisdiction, AHJ, this terminology is very commonly used in Qatar or in countries that are adopting 101. It does not necessarily mean the fire brigade, fire safety department, civil defense. It also refers to owners, design consultant or main contractors who are adopting 101 in their application. So they are also considered AHJ, except that at the highest level, AHJ is always meant to be referred to the government agency. Code is a document that slightly differs from a standard. Okay? Just like 101, it is called Life Safety Code. It's because it is a document that states what is required, where you need it, and whereas in a standard, it's a document that says how it is being installed, or designed, inspected, and maintained. So that's the difference. For example, we look at standard NFPA 13, it says standard. Okay, we look at NFPA 10, it says standard. So these two documents and the rest of these documents that says standard, you will not find anything that says, oh, all right, this building will require fire extinguisher. This kind of building, this occupancy will require sprinkler system. On the other hand, code like life safety code, you'll find those. It will say high-rise unit sprinkler system. Label. I'll just go quickly label and listed their when it's listed. If it's listed, you don't know that listed equipment device means those have been tested for their durability, able to continue working as intended after rigorous tests being done on them. For example, door closer, a listed door closer will be subjected to an opening and closing cycle for 100,000 times. At the end of the 100,000 time, if the door closer remains working, then it is listed. So when it's listed, you need that device to be labeled like a marking, like a sticker. Shall refers to mandatory. So Bear with it because not everything in life safety code will always be a shall. Sometimes it's mentioned as should. Should refers to a recommendation. So as a designer, you may want to consider using it, or you may not want to apply it. I will just cover important or commonly used words. Right? Majority of the definitions here are quite easy to understand, straightforward. Have a look at the also net floor area and gross leasable area. This phrase GLA become uh, useful when designer is working on a shopping mall. Net floor area refers to a gross floor area with certain percentage of the gross floor area being taken out, okay, for the purpose of deducing the. I'd like to bring your attention to 1.1 unoccupied building service equipment. Now, this uh, despite making a reference to a plant room, okay, then we will say a plant room is normally unoccupied. If you go down into various chapters in NFPA 101, you will find that plant room can either be classified as industrial special purpose occupancy or storage occupancy, right? So on that basis, you, I conclude that a plant room is a room which is normally unoccupied, which then goes well with the next clause 3321.7 occupiable area, which basically says space, facility being occupied by people on a regular basis. Again, this is subjective. Regular basis, what does it mean? Okay, basically means uh, 80% or 90% of the operational hours to find people in that particular space. If you are looking into door assembly, uh, you may want to have a look at this definition, right? A combination of door, frame, hardware, other accessories that is placed in an opening in the wall, intended primarily for access or for exit. Fire door assembly uh, differs slightly from just door assembly. It's basically a fire, which means it has to remain working for the duration of it's being rated. For example, a 1 hour fire door assembly means that it can still use and prevent fire spread. How door fire being a fire door can be covered discovered in NFPA. Fear, common atmosphere, yeah, common atmosphere that exists between rooms under the smoke barrier. Interesting. If you look at this, if someone asks, uh, someone quick to arrive to a conclusion that, and to something which is out from this day, it's just an atmosphere that exists between room spaces within a building. So atmosphere can also refer to within a building. And is in NFPA 20 where an automatic air shall be discharged into the atmosphere. Again, if we think that aerospace, then how come NFPA 20 diagram should the position of the automatic inside? So, so what my advice is, we in the application and understanding of certain phases used in the NFPA make sense. Are we being accessible a certain word? Separate atmosphere that exists between rooms that are separated by a smoke barrier. All right. Atrium. Okay. Atrium is a vertical opening connecting two or more stories. Now, very often we describe atrium like a shopping mall. You have 3 stories, 4 stories, and the center is open, and it's atrium. But here it's clearly saying that if it is even 2 stories, it is an atrium. Yeah? Some people call it mini atrium. As we go later on into a different chapter within Life Safety Code, in particular chapter 8 of 101, we will come across a specific uh, definition or heading given for a 2-story atrium. It's called communicating space. Automatic, again, this is good to pick up the meaning, capable of performing a function without the necessity of human intervention. This word automatic will come in really useful when we go to chapter 7, looking at the requirements on locking devices. Okay, uh, if you I always describe to people around me that there's a difference between electrically locking device and access control device. Access control device or doors are doors that open automatically by sensing automatically. There you go. It is describing it without an intervention. So if you pull apart and across a device to a door to gain entry into it, then that system is not called access control doors. That falls under electrically controlled door, which has lesser, less stringent requirements as opposed to the access control door. Basement, wholly or partly below grade plane, that is not considered the first story above grade plane, right? Uh, High rise will be a building with an occupant story leading to 3 meter lowest level. What it means, I will draw here. For the very poor sketch here using the Nitro Pro. Let's say this is a high-rise building and it is sited on a ground level that is in there. We are looking at a section. So there's a road here, there's a road here. Both roads are fire access road where these boxes represent a fire engine. The fire engine can stop here and likewise here. Based on this definition, where is that? High rise. Above the lowest level, it means uh, the um, the height. Let's draw that line. The height of the habitable height of this building will be measured from this highest habitable floor all the way down to this level, and not from this down here, because this is not the lowest fire engine access road, but this is the lowest, right? So that's how you get it. Now, do you measure up to the roof? Well, that depends. If you have another room, let's say a penthouse, just a small penthouse, there you go, then that roof is considered habitable floor. So you have to measure it right up to there, down here. Remember we covered occupiable here, right? So what is occupiable? What is not occupiable? Not occupiable will be plant room. Okay, but if you have penthouse occupied by people, it is occupiable space, and therefore that is your occupied level habitable level, right? So it has to be exceeding 23 meters. Okay. Now this 23 meters really, if you divide by the usual floor to floor height, let's say 3.3, how much you get? 23 divided by 3, say 3.3. So you get about 7 story. Now, so this 7 story it becomes a challenge for firefighters in their operation. Thus, they came out with this threshold 23 meters, right? If anything below, okay, why 7 story? Because usually when a fire is happening at the 7th floor, the firefighters staging deployment of resources will be on the 5th floor. So without a fire lift, it is still sensible and manageable to bring all resources and begin fire operation from the 5th level via a staircase. But the moment it becomes higher and higher, it becomes very, very challenging. Thus, 23 meters becomes a threshold. So building with a high rise, two things need to happen, or even three things. First, it has to be sprinkler protected. Second, it needs a fire lift. Third, it needs to have a fire command center. Historical buildings is a building that have historical values. Now, this historical building is not meant to be applied loosely by anyone. Okay, you come across an old building and you call it this is a historical building. Mall building. What is a mall building? It's basically looks like this. Okay, let me draw it to you. You have 2 rows of shops. Okay, let's see. Avoiding this. Now we're looking at the section of elevation, and you being a person standing over there. Okay, there you go. So if you have a situation like this is not a mall. It's basically two uh, buildings, okay, mercantile buildings, one on the left and one on the right. But when a roof is being constructed and it closes the top here, this whole thing becomes a mall building. So what is the implication? The implication is a mall, if you look at chapter mercantile, will have more stringent requirements as opposed to two buildings next to each other, and we can consider them as separated multiple buildings. Next will be change of use, right? Changing the or purpose of activities within a structure that involves change in application of the requirements. Okay, so change of use will require a submission to the authority in a normal situation, unless an authority has a set of guidelines that dictates the scenario where submission is required or otherwise. Common path of travel refers to what most of us are familiar with: one-way travel. One-way travel. Content and furnishing refers to movable objects in a building. What else? Where should we cover now? I will I will scroll through quickly because majority of these are self-explanatory. See, you will refer to heading occupancy down, and we cover this specific definition. Enclosed car park. Okay, let's go to this important word here, exit. Okay, it refers to means of egress that is separated from all other spaces by construction, location, or equipment as required to provide protected way of travel to the exit discharge. So exit uh, is a portion of means of egress. What does it mean? It means it is part of means of egress. As we will later on come across the meaning of means of egress, we will then understand why this is defined this way. So being part of a means of egress, and it has to be separated from other areas through fire rated compartment or by physical separation or even by equipment. Equipment here could be means like smoke venting system to ventilate hot smoke before it reaches the stair. Horizontal exit refers to exiting a space or building in a horizontal manner. Okay? This will be covered in depth in chapter 7. Exit access, also a portion of means of egress that leads to an exit. Exit discharge, part of means of egress between termination of an exit and a public way. Okay? Level of exit discharge, the story that is either the lowest story from which not less than 50% of the required number of exits and not less than 50% of the required egress capacity from such a story discharged directly outside at the finished ground level, or when no story meets the condition of the first one, the story that is provided with one or more exits that discharge directly to the outside to the finished ground level via the smallest elevation change. Okay, let's see what it says on the annex. Level of exit discharge, low occupancy and ancillary spaces, exit doors discharging directly to outside, such as mechanical equipment rooms or storage. See, you come across this again. Plant rooms or storage. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, mechanical plant rooms and storage, they are uh, areas or spaces or rooms that are not normally occupied. Located on levels other than occupied floors should not be considered in the determination of level of the estimation. Okay, so this clarification is meant to show that level that has occupancy which are for mechanical rooms, which is considered not occupied space, cannot be considered as the level of exit discharge. So let's get back to 3385.1. 3385. Where is that? 3385.1. Oh, sorry. So the difference between 50% of required number of exits and 50% of required capacity, when we talk about capacity, it refers to width. Okay, for staircase, the capacity is deduced by a factor of 7.6 mm for every person. Okay, this is the common factor. It could be other factors depending on occupancy classification, but for simplicity reason, I'll just adopt 7.6 mm because this is the most commonly used for the projects that are being commonly uh, involved with majority of the construction industry. So 7.6 mm per person. So if you have 100, so you need to have 760 mm stair, but because the staircase needs to be minimum 1120 for more than 50%, so the staircase becomes 1120 mm wide. So that is a capacity. Number of exits refers to the number of staircases. Okay, this is uh, uh, governed by the default requirement of number of exits for majority, if not all, of the occupancy classification is 2. Okay, so you always start with 2 number of exits. So that's number of exits. Can the number of exits be 1? Yes. Depending on a separate chapter of dedicated occupancy classification chapter, it will say how a single stair can be allowed. Okay, so there are 2 elements here: number of exits and capacity, which refers to the width of the stair. So I hope you are clear on this one, 3385.1. If you need further clarification, please write in the comment box in my channel. Interior finish refers to ceiling and walls. Flooring will refer to the floor, interior finish floor. Sorry, interior finish, then you have interior finish floor finish, interior wall finish. Right? Okay. So this in heading, and you have subheading here. All right, let's look at this fire hardware. Okay, it's a type of panic hardware that additionally provides fire protection where used as part of a fire door. How does it differ from this one? Okay, that one is fire exit hardware and this is panic hardware. Door latching assembly incorporating actuating member or bar that releases the latch, okay, when applied in the egress direction. So clearly the difference between fire exit hardware and panic hardware is the fire resistance rating of that particular door. Okay, so this has to be listed hardware, not components of the certificates. High rise we have covered. Okay, it's 3321.4. 3321.4. All right, we should have a look at this hazardous area. That's a degree of greater than normal to the occupancy of the building. So what does this mean? It means basically if you have an area or say an office that is within a building. Sorry, let me start that again. If there is a building which is predominantly business or office, and then there is an area which is not office but a storeroom that keeps uh, LPG gases for say for whatever the reason, or even a diesel, or even yeah, diesel, LPG, for heating. So this occupancy which are not normal to the general occupancy of the main building. Therefore, this called hazardous area. It may not be high hazard area, but these are hazardous areas. High-rise building we have covered. Historic building we have also covered. Okay, have a look at the daycare home and nursing home. Okay, a building which has more than 3 but not more than 12 clients receiving care, maintenance, supervision by other than their family members, not more than 24 hours. Daycare, nursing, portion of building used on 24 hours basis. So the difference will be one is less than 24 hours and the other is 24 hours or more. Hospital, used on 24-hour basis, giving medical, psychiatric, obstetrical, surgical of 4 or more patients. These are key indicators of what a building is. Should it be classified as hospital? First, it operates 24 hours or more. It has psychiatric service, obstetrical, or surgical. Now, surgical here refers to the need for anesthesia, right? So, if a building is called a clinic and there is day surgery feature and it is using anesthesia, then it is a hospital. Of 4 or more patients, 4 or more inpatients. Inpatients refers to sleeping. Outpatient will be patients who are not sleeping in a hospital. Hotel, providing sleeping accommodation for more than 16 persons. Okay, so this is key indicator, more than 16. And transient. Okay, transient means guests come and go. Okay, if they are staying there on long-term basis, more than a few weeks, a month or two, then it may not necessarily be a hotel. It could be reclassified as an apartment. Illuminated has 2 types. One is externally illuminated and internally illuminated. Externally illuminated device would require uh, light fitting, uh, throwing lights to an exit sign or directional sign. Occupant load, the total number of persons that might occupy a building at any one time. Okay, this can be deduced from gross floor area or net floor area divided by the appropriate occupant load factor, or an occupant load factor, or an occupant load given assigned by building owner. Usually, whichever is higher, but for being sensible purpose, if an owner decides to insist that a design has a room which is far less than an occupant load, which would be higher deduced from using the NFPA occupant load factor, then the designer may opt to use the lower number given by owner, but making sure a notice is permanently provided outside the door of that particular room or space, and this should be declared during design submission to the authority. So if you're doing mall, you may want to look at major tenants. Mall here, mall building we've covered, right? Means of egress. All right, let's spend a little bit of time here. Means of egress, a continuous and unobstructed way of travel from any point to a public way consisting of three parts. First, the exit access. Second, the exit proper. And three is the exit discharge. Okay, let's see what it says on the NX 33172. 33172. Means of egress comprises the vertical and horizontal travel and includes intervening rooms, spaces, doorways, hallways, and all of these. Okay, 33172. Yeah. I would like to, or rather, I prefer to uh, illustrate this in a very simple way. I'll just, in my mind, I'll just draw an exit stair, looking sectional or elevation, and you have floor here, and obviously you have a door here. So, and then you have a small door here. Okay. So where is the exit, or where is the means of egress in this diagram? It is this whole thing, right? So you have exit access, the vertical part of the exit stair, and the discharge. This whole thing is means of egress. But if you have a corridor, right, then it should also include that bit, right? And if you have uh, exit passageway that connects this way before you have another door, then your means of egress is this whole thing, right? Means of escape differs significantly from the definition of means of egress, a way out that does not conform strictly by the definition of means of egress, but does provide an alternate way out. So, example, a window. If you have uh, apartment on the lower ground, and if it's excessively big, um, travel distance is exceeded, then a window can be considered as a means of escape. This will be discussed thoroughly as we go into the specific chapter for uh, this villa or even apartment or even hotel. Mezzanine and intermediate level between floor and ceiling of any room. You get this more defined as we get to chapter 6, where mezzanine is actually defined as um, a floor that does not exceed uh, a floor that has a width not exceeding 1/3 of the floor below it, excluding any enclosed areas below the mezzanine. Okay, I will do a more illustration when it comes to the more refined definition of mezzanine. Now, here will be the subheading where you may want to get uh, your focus on when you are working on a particular project. You need to classify it. Okay, go to this clause 3.3.190 occupancy, and you will find a whole list of occupancy classification. Yeah, I don't think I want to cover every one of them because I try to keep my video short. But let's cover just a few that are commonly used. For example, assembly is for a gathering of 50 or more person, deliberately for deliberation of worship, entertainment, nightclubs, eating, restaurant. Okay. Whereas all business occupancy will be used for transaction of business other than mercantile. So business occupancy will be just basically offices. Okay. Then you have daycare, detention, right? Educational occupancy will be occupancy used for education purposes up to 12th grade by 6 or more persons for 4 or more hours per day or more than 12 hours per week. So this is it. Okay, if you sit down and you can draw it out. Okay, let's say you have you draw like this. Okay, you draw lines. 1 day, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay. So this definition doesn't say where the school starts or operates, whether Sunday or Saturday is up to you, right? But it has to be 4 or more hours per day. So you have 4 or more hours. You operate four, 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 or you have an off year, okay, or more than 12 hours per week. So you can have 3 hours spread over, all right, you still fall under education. And 12th grade uh, refers to up to the age of 17 years old. So that means the universities do not fall under education occupancy. That falls under business occupancy. Then you have healthcare occupancy. If you look at healthcare, uh, one of the building that falls under this heading will be the hospital. Occupancy used to provide medical treatment simultaneously to more than 4 patients on inpatient basis, right? Physical, mental, whatnot. The mental. Special purpose industrial occupancy. It is an occupancy in which ordinary or low hazard industrial operations are taking place. Okay. Very often, apart from the very obvious activities within this room, uh, designers can also classify mechanical rooms, MEP rooms, under this special purpose industrial occupancy. I will show later on down the NFPA where storage occupancy can also be used to classify MEP rooms. Mixed occupancy and multiple. Okay. Mixed will be occupancies that are intermingled. Multiple will be 2 or more classes. Now, I usually classify uh, building with 2 or more different occupancy classification as multiple. Then from multiple occupancy, I will have a sub-classification of either mixed multiple or separated multiple occupancy. Mixed and separated. The significance or the more prominent uh, difference between the two is when from occupancies use the same means of egress, then that becomes mixed multiple. When occupants from 2 different occupancy classification have their dedicated means of egress, then those are separated multiple occupancy, and the chapter 6, the separation between different occupancy as described in chapter 6 will then apply, as you will be shown in a different video. Sorry for all the sketches. Points of safety is a location that is exterior and away from a building, or it can also be within a building of any and sprinkler product. Public way, we street, alley, or similar areas that are open to the outside air, dedicated or otherwise appropriated to the public for public use, and having a width and height of not less than how much is that? 3 meters. If we later on come to exit termination, exit discharge, uh, exiting or discharging an exit into a public way is then is permitted, and this is where you will have to put your attention to. You may realize that there is an element of height restriction. Why? This is because apart, termination of an exit does not necessarily mean to the extent as it has been pointed out to be within the that's 3 meters vertical. One example will be exit stairs of multi-story car park that discharge into within the enclosed part of the building, right? But in the road, in the car park road, in my opinion, that is still acceptable. It still meets the requirement of exit termination into a public way, because as long as the door of the at the level of the exit discharge opens into a roadway, safely into a roadway, and that roadway has a minimum width of 3 meters and clear height of 3 meters, then that is already meeting the requirement, with a condition that, of course, the public must also be open to the air outside, so that where the air inside at the roadway must be the same as the same air that is on the outside of the car park. Okay, it's not necessarily that each time when the requirement says exit stairs must discharge uh, directly to the external, it does not necessarily mean always to the outside. Yes, we will discover that later on in chapter 7. The outside stair will be this, with one side open to the outer air. In some codes, it's called external stair. Right, so that would be a quick coverage of chapter 3 definitions. I do encourage the user of NFPA 101 to put time to go through the words, phrases, terminology used as defined in NFPA 101, and do not be overly concerned where those words that you are looking described in chapter 3. Okay, you can quickly go to Merriam-Webster, either hard copy or online, and you get those definition from those sources. For example, I just had an experience not too long ago where there was this debate about what a tunnel is. All right, so it's not very clear in NFPA 113, NFPA 502, I believe. Let me see. NFPA 502, yeah. Okay, just let me just pull it out. The tunnel, yes. Okay. Sorry that I'm deviating into NFPA 502 because I just want to show the limitation to all the definitions provided in NFPA. Road tunnel, an enclosed roadway for motor vehicle that is limited to portals. Okay, if you really analyze this word portal, it really means uh, a road that goes through a mountain that from one and you get on, or vice versa. But to get even more description about a road tunnel, okay, when I went to Merriam-Webster, significant or popping up Merriam-Webster was the fact a road tunnel is one which goes through an obstruction. Now, that obstruction can be below ground, above ground. What will be below ground is easy. You dig a hole and becomes an underground tunnel, and above now a hill. So you are going through above ground, but it's through it tunnel. Any other that under the other tunnel is something else. Of course, it has various description. Okay, for example, roads below air right structure, which means there is a building on top of a road highway and the road goes below. That's not a tunnel. That's just a building over a road. If it's a bridge, it's not a tunnel because a bridge is not a building, right? So that's how you should work around words or phrases that you are not able to be convinced about the definition or still unsure about the definition. Just go to Merriam-Webster and you get more description. I will end my video for chapter 3 now. Thank you.